What if this moment repeats forever? Look around you. This moment, whatever you're doing, whatever you're feeling, what if it never really ends? What if it's not just now, but forever? You've felt it before, haven't you? That quiet, unsettling echo inside your chest. Déjà vu. The strange repetition. The sense that you've scrolled this feed, opened this video, lived this very second not once, but countless times before. What if I told you you're not imagining it? What if you've been living the same life over and over again and just forgot? No, this isn't a movie plot or some metaphysical trick. It's a question that a man once whispered into the ear of history. His name was Friedrich Nietzsche, and he didn't just claim that God was dead. He didn't just shake religion at its foundation. He offered something far more terrifying, a soul riddle, a cosmic test, a spiritual dare that few ever recover from. If you had to live this life, every pain, every joy, every regret, exactly the same, again and again for eternity, would you still live it the same way? Imagine being told by a demon that every choice you make will echo forever, that the heartbreak you're nursing, the job you hate, the dreams you keep delaying will never go away, because you'll live them again and again and again. That there is no judgment, no reward, no punishment, only repetition. How would you feel? You might laugh, shrug, dismiss it. But what if deep down, your soul already knows it's true? What if that's why you can't sleep some nights? Why moments of silence feel so loud? Why you keep distracting yourself, scrolling, escaping? Because somewhere, this isn't just another Tuesday. This could be the first of infinite Tuesdays. And you are the one choosing what that means. Welcome to the clock with no hands. A place where time doesn't move forward, it spins. Where meaning isn't given, it's built. Where God may be gone, but something more dangerous remains. You. If that thought scares you, good. It means you're awake. It means you're ready. Because what comes next isn't a philosophy lesson. It's a mirror, a challenge, a path through the abyss with nothing but your own breath to light the way. This is the gay science, retold like you've never heard it before. So, take a breath and get ready to step into the first insight. When the light goes out, what happens to your soul? Insight 1. The lantern in the dark. Imagine a world without stars, no sun, no moon, just endless swirling black. Now imagine living in that world, and being the only one who remembers what light used to feel like. That's the world Nietzsche placed us in when he whispered, "God is dead." It wasn't a celebration, it was a funeral, not of a person, but of meaning itself. Not because Nietzsche hated faith, but because he saw what blind faith had become, a crutch for comfort, a cage disguised as certainty. He told us this truth through a story. A madman enters a bustling marketplace at dawn, holding a lantern. He's not looking for money or food. He's looking for God. He screams to the crowd, "Where is he?" But everyone just laughs. They say, "He's hiding, or perhaps on a voyage." They mock him because they think it's a joke. But the madman doesn't laugh. His face is pale. His eyes are fire. And then he drops the bomb. God is dead, and we have killed him. But what did that mean? It wasn't about a deity disappearing. It was about the collapse of the invisible framework we built our world on. A collapse we caused. God didn't vanish. He was replaced by science, by logic, by economy, by routine. But none of those could touch the soul. None could answer the ancient ache. Why are we here? Let's bring that madman to 2025. Picture him now, not in a marketplace, but in a train station, or a TikTok live, screaming into the algorithm. Where is meaning? But he's lost beneath scrolls and memes. We laugh, just like the crowd did back then. We say, he's just depressed. He's crazy. He's not being realistic. But maybe, just maybe, he's the only one who's sane. The lantern he holds is no longer literal fire. It's the last flicker of soul-searching left in a world of artificial light. He asks the questions no one wants to face, because facing them means tearing down the life you've built on autopilot. So, what do we do now in this world without divine coordinates? We must become the light, not fake positivity, not spiritual bypassing, but honest fire, the kind that admits we are in the dark and chooses to burn anyway. Have you ever felt like that madman, screaming something real into a world that only wants noise? Have you ever held a truth so raw it burned, only to be told you were too much? Maybe you weren't crazy. Maybe you were carrying a lantern others were too scared to see. And if that lantern is still inside you, then this is your moment to lift it higher. But what happens when the crowd doesn't just ignore the truth, but builds an entire society on its silence? Insight 2, the madman scream. The crowd keeps laughing. That's the part most people forget. When the madman announces that God is dead, the marketplace doesn't fall silent. It roars with ridicule. And that's the true horror, not that something sacred has died, but that no one even cares. Now, picture that same scream, echoing in the modern world. But this time, it's not in a dusty town square. It's buried in the comment section of a forgotten video. It's typed out in a trembling Reddit thread at 3 a.m. It's whispered in therapy rooms, or shouted into the void of social media, only to be buried under filters, dances, and dopamine. This is the new marketplace, the new deaf crowd. We've become masters of noise and slaves to silence. We scroll endlessly, but never listen. We say, I'm spiritual, but panic in silence. We worship productivity, validation, dopamine hits. Anything to drown out that ancient scream. Where is meaning? Where is soul? But here's what Nietzsche saw that most still don't. The scream is not madness. It's the beginning of awakening. The madman wasn't crazy. He was just early. He felt the collapse before anyone else. And instead of numbing it, he named it. There's a kind of courage in screaming what no one wants to hear. It's not just emotional honesty. It's spiritual rebellion. It's saying, I will not pretend. I will not act like everything's fine when the stars have fallen. Maybe you've felt it too. That ache in your chest when you hear someone say, everything happens for a reason, and you want to scream. Or when you look around and see people chasing careers, likes, partners, not because they love them, but because they're afraid to stop and feel the void. That's not madness. That's your soul refusing to go quietly. What the author really means in this scene isn't just the death of a god. It's the birth of responsibility. When the divine compass shatters, you're no longer allowed to follow blindly. You become the compass. You decide north. And that is terrifying, because freedom, true freedom, means no excuses. Have you been living like someone else is in charge of your meaning? Like someday, somewhere, a moment or mentor or miracle will save you? Nietzsche would say, no one's coming. And that's the good news, because now, finally, the scream becomes yours. And that scream is sacred. So the next time you feel like breaking down, maybe don't. Maybe break open. Let the scream out. Not as a cry for help, but as a declaration. I see through the illusion, and I will no longer play along. But what happens after the scream, after the gods fall and the lights go out? What does a soul do when it's floating in the dark with no North Star? Insight 3, a world without an axis. When you remove the center from a spinning top, it doesn't stop. It spirals out of control. That's what happens to the soul when its axis, its ultimate meaning, is pulled away. After the scream fades, after the crowd disperses and the lantern dies out, you're left with silence, but not peace. A gnawing, spinning silence, one where up feels like down and right feels like a lie. Nietzsche doesn't offer comfort here. He doesn't say, it's going to be okay. He says, now you are adrift. And drifting at first feels like drowning. In the ancient world, everything pointed upward. Kings ruled by divine right. Morality descended from commandments. Pain had a purpose because heaven was waiting. But now, the sky is empty. No divine surveillance. No sacred punishment. No finish line. Only space. So, what happens when your life is no longer measured against eternity? When no invisible hand writes the rules? You start to realize that you're the author. Not of truth, but of your truth. Not of the world, but of your place in it. And that realization is both terrifying and electrifying. Let's bring this down to earth. Think about someone who lost their religion, not intellectually, but emotionally. A priest who no longer believes, but still puts on the robe. A mother who prays, not with faith, but with fear. A teenager who walks out of church one day and never returns, staring at the sky, waiting for thunder, but hearing nothing. That emptiness? That's the spinning. The modern version of this is everywhere. Former believers turned skeptics. Corporate workers who reach success and feel nothing. Therapists drowning in the very patterns they help others escape. Everyone spinning, hoping something will catch them. But Nietzsche's message is not despair. It's an invitation. Because a world without an axis is also a world with infinite directions. When nothing is sacred by default, anything can become sacred by choice. The void, then, is not a prison. It's a canvas. It is the terrifying freedom to build from scratch. But here's the challenge. You can't build if you're still mourning the map. You have to let go of needing the stars to guide you. You have to stop begging the heavens for answers and start listening to the silence inside. Have you ever felt that spin, that strange sense that everything you believed was a script someone else wrote? What if that wasn't a crisis, but the beginning of authorship? Because once you stop spinning, once you accept the groundlessness of it all, something strange happens. You laugh. Not because it's funny, but because you realize the joke is cosmic, that in the absence of rules, you're free to dance. Insight 4. The clock with no hands. What if every second of your life, every mistake, every joy, every tear, wasn't just something you remember, but something you were destined to relive forever? No reset, no escape, no salvation, just an infinite loop of you. That is Nietzsche's most disturbing, most beautiful experiment, eternal recurrence. He asks us to imagine this. A demon visits you in your loneliest moment and says, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more. There will be nothing new in it, but every pain, every joy will return to you, again and again in the same sequence." And then he asks, would you fall to the ground and curse the demon? Or would you say, "You are a god, and never have I heard anything more divine"? It's not a threat, it's a mirror. The concept of eternal recurrence is not about cosmology, it's about courage. It's not saying that life actually repeats, it's asking if it should. It's Nietzsche's ultimate ethical question. Is your life so meaningful that you would choose it again, exactly as it is, for all eternity? Let that sink in. No edits, no second takes. Just this version of you, over and over again. The way you speak to your partner, the job you complain about but stay in, the dreams you shelve, the apologies you never say, the nights you numb out and call it rest. Imagine the horror if all of that was forever. And now imagine the power if you could make it worth repeating. This idea breaks time. It takes away the illusion of someday. It replaces it with the brutal honesty of now. There are no next chances in eternal recurrence. There is only this moment playing on a loop. So what do? You live. You live as if every breath matters. You love like it's the only love you'll ever get. You risk because fear is a waste in a world that never ends. You choose to make your life so vivid, so honest, so radically yours that you'd want it to repeat. Because if you can say yes to this life forever, you've passed the test. Have you ever asked yourself that question? Would you marry the same person? Take the same job? Scroll this same feed again and again? If the answer is no, don't despair. That's the invitation. That's the alarm. That's the moment the clock stops lying to you. Because it was never moving forward anyway. It's been spinning all along. And it's in that spin, when the illusion of progress dissolves, that you're forced to ask the only question that ever mattered. How do I make this moment worth eternity? Insight 5. The joke in the void. You'd expect Nietzsche, the man who declared God dead and time a trap, to be somber, cynical, cold. But that's not what happens. After the scream, after the void, after the eternity trap, Nietzsche does something no one expects. He laughs. Not because he's mocking the tragedy, not because he's escaped the pain, but because laughter, for him, is the only answer powerful enough to face the abyss without flinching. Picture this. A man standing at the edge of a bottomless cliff, staring into endless blackness. Most of us would cry, or run, or pray. But Nietzsche, he opens his arms and starts to laugh. Not a mad laugh, not a desperate one, but the kind of laughter that comes when you realize the universe isn't out to get you, because it was never about you to begin with. It's not the laughter of dismissal, it's the laughter of liberation. You see, when you realize life has no inherent meaning, there are two choices, despair or design. Most people choose despair. They crumble under the weight of freedom, but Nietzsche chooses something stranger, joy, not happiness, not pleasure, joy. A deep, resonant yes to existence, even the ugly, even the absurd. He says, I would only believe in a God who could dance. And you begin to understand what he means. That dancing isn't just celebration, it's defiance. It's saying, I see the chaos, and I still choose beauty. It's laughing in the face of the infinite. And this is where Nietzsche becomes most dangerous. Not when he kills God, but when he kills fear. Because when you laugh at the void, nothing can control you anymore. Not guilt, not doctrine, not even death. Let's bring this to life. Robin Williams, a man who made millions laugh while silently wrestling with a storm. His laughter wasn't escape, it was resistance. A bright flash in the darkness. Or think of Anthony Bourdain, wandering the world not just for flavor, but for meaning, knowing the absurdity and still telling the story. These were men who touched the void and tried to sing within it. What the author really means here is that humor is the soul's last rebellion, that when all rules collapse and meaning melts into fog, your smile becomes sacred. Your dance becomes divine, not because it changes the world, but because it changes you. So ask yourself, have you laughed recently? Not because something was funny, but because something was real. Because the moment was absurd, raw, uncontrollable, and still you felt alive? Have you ever stared into the mirror and laughed at how fragile, ridiculous, and glorious you are? That laugh is a form of worship. And now that you can smile at the void, now that you know time loops and the gods are gone, you're ready for the next step. Not just acceptance, not just survival, but the deepest, hardest, most radical thing of all, loving your fate. Insight 6, Amor Fati, love your fate. It's one thing to survive your pain. It's another to accept it. But Nietzsche asks something even more impossible. To love it. Amor Fati, the love of fate. Not tolerance, not endurance. Love. He doesn't mean loving just the sunsets and victories. He means loving the heartbreak, the betrayal, the failures. He means looking your scars in the eye and saying, thank you. Think about that. Not, why did this happen to me? But, what if this had to happen? Not, I wish I had a different story. But, this story is perfect, exactly as it is. This is the next level after eternal recurrence. It's not just, would you live it again? It's, would you bless it, knowing it repeats forever? Would you tattoo your tragedy on your soul like sacred ink? Nietzsche isn't romanticizing suffering. He's redefining power, because anyone can love what feels good. It takes a different kind of strength to love what nearly destroyed you. Let's make it real. There's a woman named Edith Eger, survivor of Auschwitz, a dancer ripped from her home, forced to perform for Josef Mengele, the angel of death. She saw horror beyond imagining, and years later, she said something breathtaking. I don't hate the Nazis, I pity them. My real revenge is living free. That is Amor Fati, not forgiveness, not forgetting, but transforming pain into power. It's not saying, it's okay it happened. It's saying, it happened, and I'm going to dance anyway. This isn't motivational fluff, it's soul alchemy. It's the quiet decision, deep in the night, to stop being a victim of the script and start owning the story. What the author really means is this. If you can look at your past, all of it, and say yes, then no one owns you anymore. Not your trauma, not your abusers, not your regrets. You become untouchable, not because life stops hurting, but because you stop begging for it to be different. Have you ever done that? Have you ever looked at the worst day of your life and, instead of burying it, blessed it? Try it. Pick a moment you hate, a moment that built your walls, shaped your fears. Now, whisper to it, thank you. Not because it was good, but because it carved something inside you, something sacred. That is the love of fate. That is choosing to tattoo your wounds into wisdom. And once you can do that, once you can love the storm for making you strong, you're no longer walking in the dark. You are the lightning. Insight 7. The abyss gazes back. There's a moment when the seeker stops seeking and starts being watched. Nietzsche warned us, he who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you. At first it sounds poetic, but this isn't poetry. It's prophecy. The abyss is not a place. It's a process. It's what happens when you dare to look too deeply into truth. When you peel back all the comforts, all the distractions, all the delusions, and stare naked into reality, into death, into meaninglessness, into yourself. At first, you think you're in control. You're the philosopher, the explorer. But the longer you stare, the more you realize something. The void is looking back. It sees your fears, your masks, your secrets, and it does not flinch. This is not metaphor. It happens in real life. Think of whistleblowers, people like Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning. They dug into the darkness of systems, and the systems looked back. They were changed, marked. Or think of survivors of spiritual abuse who search for God again and discover instead a hollow echo. or even those who confront their own addictions, their own patterns, only to find a monster wearing their own face. When you look too long at the darkness, the danger isn't just getting lost. The danger is becoming it. Nietzsche isn't saying, don't seek truth. He's warning, truth is not safe. There is no enlightenment without danger, no awakening without ego death, no freedom without the risk of madness. But here's the secret. The abyss is not evil. It is honest. It holds nothing back. And that's what makes it terrifying. Because when you strip away all illusions, there's only one thing left. You, your desires, your fears, your power. What the author really means is this. The abyss is your mirror. And when it gazes back, it's not judging you. It's asking a question. Can you handle your own truth? So, let me ask you, have you ever looked too long into something that shook you? A thought you couldn't unthink? A truth you couldn't forget? Did it haunt you or liberate you? Because this is the paradox. The abyss can devour you, yes, but it can also rebirth you if you don't run, if you don't lie, if you stare into it and stay. And when you emerge from that stare, if you ever do, you're not who you were before. You're not pretending. You're not asleep. You are changed. You are awake. And that awakening, stripped of comfort, soaked in silence, is the perfect stage for something radical. To live like danger is not your enemy, but your muse. Insight 8. The dance of danger. Live dangerously, Nietzsche says, not as a daredevil's motto, but as a soul survival code. Because once the gods are dead, the meaning lost, and the abyss has burned away your illusions, you are left with a choice: retreat into safety or dance with risk. But Nietzsche doesn't mean skydiving or reckless chaos. He means something far deeper, far braver, to stand on the edge of what terrifies you and move toward it anyway. To create your life not from fear, but from flame. He saw what comfort does to people. It dulls them. Safety doesn't nourish the soul. It sedates it. And a sedated soul doesn't grow. It shrinks. It forgets how to burn. So, what does it mean to live dangerously in the real world? It means saying no to a career that pays well, but kills you slowly. It means saying yes to love when your whole body is bracing for abandonment. It means choosing your truth, even if it means losing your tribe. Let's go deeper. Think of Malala Yousafzai, shot in the face as a teenager for going to school. She didn't just survive, she kept speaking, kept standing. Her danger wasn't chosen, but her courage was. Or think of Vincent van Gogh, ridiculed, rejected, painting with hunger in his belly and stars in his eyes, dying unknown, but dancing anyway. That's what Nietzsche meant. Danger isn't something to avoid, it's something to ride, because the edge is where life glows brightest. What the author really means is this: danger wakes you up. It strips away the false priorities. It clarifies. When you're standing in front of what could break you, you suddenly remember who you are and what matters. The dance of danger is not recklessness, it's intentional intensity. It's aligning your life with something so real, so alive, that safety becomes irrelevant. Have you ever felt that pull, the whisper that says, quit the job, tell the truth, walk away, begin again? And did you ignore it or move toward it? Because that whisper is your inner Nietzsche. And here's the twist: you don't have forever. Remember Insight 4? The clock has no hands. There is no later, no guarantee, just now, repeating over and over. So, why waste one more spin in a cage? Live dangerously doesn't mean burn down your life. It means stop pretending it doesn't already ache. It means give your soul something worth bleeding for. It means risk being fully alive. Because when you do, when you stop tiptoeing and start leaping, something miraculous happens. You discover joy. Not the joy of comfort, but the joy that comes from standing at the edge with the wind screaming in your ears and choosing to smile. Insight 9. Joy after God. After the gods fall and the heavens grow silent, you'd expect despair to be all that's left. But Nietzsche doesn't leave us there. He doesn't hand you a funeral. He gives you a feast. Not of comfort, but of joy. Raw, rebellious, defiant joy. The kind that rises like a phoenix from the ash of every belief that once held you. This is what Nietzsche calls the gay science. Not a science of knowledge, but a science of celebration. A study in how to sing after everything sacred has burned. But let's be clear, this joy is not pleasure, not a dopamine hit, not the numbing indulgence you scroll for at 2 a.m. It's not the vacation or the quick laugh or the spiritual bypass. Nietzsche's joy is something far more dangerous. It's joy as a philosophical stance, a war cry, a decision. The joy that comes after you've buried the God who never answered. The joy that comes after you've survived your own extinction. It's the joy of staring into the abyss and saying, yes, still, yes. Real-life proof? Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, singing songs of freedom in a concrete cell. Not because he was happy, but because joy was his rebellion. Or Maya Angelou, raped as a child, silenced for years, and later choosing to dance and write and celebrate blackness with a voice that thundered across generations. This joy is not naive. It doesn't ignore the horror. It includes it. It weaves the pain into poetry, the loss into laughter, the terror into transformation. What the author really means here is that once you've let go of the idea that someone's coming to save you, you finally begin to live. And once you stop seeking permission to exist, joy becomes inevitable. Because the secret is this: joy doesn't come from a higher power. It is the higher power. It's the pulse of being, the divine hidden inside every mundane moment, waiting for you to notice. Have you ever laughed while crying, or felt a strange electric gratitude in the middle of your worst moment? That's it. That's the joy Nietzsche is talking about. It's not happiness. It's something truer. It's waking up in a world without gods and still planting a garden. It's holding your grief like a child and still going to the dance. It's saying, even if this is all there is, I will live it beautifully. So ask yourself, what would joy look like for you? Not the easy kind, but the earned kind. The kind that comes after the breakdown. The kind that doesn't demand perfection, only presence. Because once you find it, once you taste that unbreakable, unreasonable joy, you're no longer surviving. You're resurrecting. Insight 10. The birth of the self. When the temples fall, the scriptures crumble, and the gods vanish from the sky, there's one thing left, standing in the ashes. You. But not the version shaped by obedience. Not the mask carved by culture, family, or fear. What rises is something ancient and terrifying. Your true self. Unnamed, untamed, unapproved. Nietzsche didn't believe in finding the self. He believed in becoming it. Not like discovering a treasure buried inside, but like forging a blade in fire. You don't uncover who you are. You create who you must become. This is what he meant by the phrase, become who you are. At first, it sounds like a paradox. How can I become what I already am? But it's not contradiction, it's a challenge. It's a call to peel away everything you've inherited and sculpt the self from your own raw will. Think of it like this. Imagine your identity as a costume stitched together by others, your parents, your religion, your school, your trauma, and one day, you stop acting. You step off the stage, you rip the seams, and what's left underneath is both nothing and everything. This isn't an abstract philosophy. It happens every day. David Bowie did it constantly. Reborn in Skin and Sound, Ziggy Stardust, the Thin White Duke. A man who didn't just wear personas. He played with them until the performance became the truth. Or Frida Kahlo, painting her pain, wearing her defiance, refusing to be tamed by pity, patriarchy, or even her own broken body. Her identity wasn't given. It was carved, stroke by stroke, into being. What the author really means is this. You're not a fixed soul. You're a sculptor and the clay, a dancer and the dust. You are not discovering yourself. You are choosing what version of you is worthy of eternity. And that is terrifying, because it means you can no longer hide behind roles. No longer say, this is just how I was raised. No longer excuse your cowardice as humility. It means every moment is a creative act, every choice a chisel strike. So, let me ask you, who are you becoming? Not the job title, not the brand, not the version 2.0, but the real you, the one no one ever gave you permission to be. Have you silenced that voice, or are you letting it speak now? Because when the self is born, not inherited but forged, it comes with a new kind of weight. Not guilt, not sin, but responsibility. To live as the author, not the actor. To walk without scripts. To build meaning, not borrow it. Insight 11, the burden of creation. Freedom sounds beautiful until you feel its weight, until you realize that no one's coming with blueprints, no divine architect, no sacred instruction manual, only blank space, and you, standing in the middle of it, holding a trembling hammer. This is the burden Nietzsche leaves us with. If God is dead, then you are the builder of all meaning. And building is harder than believing, much harder. You see, belief is passive. It's received, given, inherited. Creation is active. It's dangerous. It demands that you become responsible not only for your actions, but for the framework that justifies them. You are no longer a character in a cosmic story. You're the writer. And at first, that's liberating. But then the pressure begins. Because what if you build wrong? What if your meaning doesn't satisfy? What if no one validates your choices? What if your truth feels lonely? That's when many crawl back to cages, not because they love captivity, but because the air outside is so open it chokes them. This fear has a modern face. Think of the person who leaves a religion and then flounders, who says, "I'm spiritual now," but feels lost in every room. Or the entrepreneur who quits the 9 to 5 to be free and suddenly stares into a blank calendar that feels like a mirror. Or you, maybe, realizing that your life has been shaped more by default than design. What Nietzsche really means isn't that you have to build, it's that you already are. Every value you follow, every rule you obey, every compromise you tolerate, you built that. Maybe unconsciously, maybe by copying others, but it's yours now, and it's your job to rebuild. Have you ever asked, why do I think this is good? Why do I fear that is bad? Who told me what matters? These questions are the chisels. They carve through the soft wood of assumption until something real begins to emerge. But creation isn't quick. It's slow, lonely. It's rewriting your morality not in theory, but in action. Not with words, but with sweat. And the hardest part? No one claps when you get it right. There's no divine pat on the back. No guaranteed audience. Just the quiet satisfaction that you chose this. That this structure of values, however imperfect, was not inherited, but authored. That is Nietzsche's challenge. Not to live freely, but to live deliberately. So ask yourself, what are you building? Is your life a copy of someone else's plan? Or are you willing to face the blank page, the cold marble, the terrifying freedom, and sculpt something you can stand beside proudly? Insight 12, the fire of forgetting. Before a forest can renew, it must burn. Before steel is reforged, it must be melted. And before a soul can truly begin again, it must learn to forget. Nietzsche didn't just speak of memory as a tool. He treated it as a weapon, one that, when aimed inward, can wound you over and over again. Not because the past is wrong, but because your attachment to it holds you hostage. This is the insight few dare to embrace. Sometimes healing is not remembering better. It's remembering less. Not all memories are sacred. Some are chains. Some are ghosts wearing the faces of who you used to be. And Nietzsche knew, if you keep replaying the pain, you're not honoring it. You're being ruled by it. Think of trauma survivors who've built altars to their past. People who define themselves not by who they are becoming, but by what happened to them. Or artists so bound to their first success that they never dare to evolve. Or you, maybe, still repeating a story that no longer fits, just because it once kept you safe. Nietzsche's remedy? Fire. Burn the old identity. Burn the script others handed you. Burn the reflex to explain yourself to ghosts. And in that fire, watch who remains. Here's a real example. Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, whose entire family was murdered, said, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find meaning in the suffering." But that meaning wasn't in memorializing every detail. It was in transmuting the pain into something present, into action, into purpose, into life. What the author really means is that forgetting is not denial. It's clearing the ground for new roots. It's not about erasing the past. It's about refusing to let it trap you. Memory without meaning is paralysis. So ask yourself, what are you still remembering that no longer serves your becoming? What old stories do you replay, not because they're true, but because they're familiar? What identities have calcified around you like armor, when what you really need is skin? You have permission to burn them, to let the version of you that once needed them die, because in that death, something sacred happens. You begin to write new memories, ones born not from fear, but from freedom. Insight 13, the artist of existence. What if life isn't a problem to solve, but a canvas to paint? What if the question was never, what's the meaning of life? But instead, what kind of art will you make of it? This is the transformation Nietzsche whispers beneath all his rage and fire. After the gods fall, after the abyss stares back, after you've burned the old self down to ash, what remains is pure creative space, not a void, a studio, And in that studio, the tools are not belief systems or commandments. They're courage, choice, and color. Nietzsche doesn't want disciples. He wants creators, not artists in the traditional sense, but individuals who treat existence itself as their raw material. Your habits, your relationships, your thoughts, your routines, all of it. Brushstrokes. What the author really means is that every day you wake up is a chance to sculpt a version of you that's never existed before, not to fit into someone else's portrait, but to explode off the canvas with your own texture, your own chaos, your own glow. But most people don't live that way. Most live as if their lives were pre-drawn coloring books. They fill in the lines with what people expect. They shade carefully inside societal edges, and then wonder why their soul feels gray. Think of people like Yayoi Kusama, locked in psychiatric care for most of her life, battling hallucinations, and yet she filled infinite rooms with glowing polka dots and endless mirrors. Her art wasn't an escape, it was survival. Or Prince, who refused to be boxed into gender, sound, or identity. He painted his own being with purple lightning and didn't ask for permission. That's what it looks like to live as the artist of your own existence. But here's the catch. Art requires risk. You might be misunderstood, you might fail. But in Nietzsche's world, that's irrelevant. There is no divine critic waiting at the end. There's only you and the question, did I create something real? Have you ever lived a day like it was a poem, a conversation like it was choreography, a morning like it was sculpture in motion? If not, maybe today is the day. Maybe you stop asking, what should I do, and start asking, what would be beautiful to do? Because beauty is not weakness, it's resistance. It's your refusal to live blandly in a world begging you to disappear into the noise. And when you embrace that, when you pick up the brush and begin painting your own soul into the world, something radical happens. You no longer chase meaning. You become it. Insight 14, the final challenge. What if no savior is coming? No messiah, no enlightenment, no guru with glowing eyes. Just you, waking up alone again in the skin of your choices. What then? This is Nietzsche's final brutal mercy. If there is no one left to save you, then you must become the one who saves yourself. It's the moment the mirror shatters. The moment you realize that all the hands you were reaching for were your own. That the heavens have gone quiet not because they hate you, but because they are waiting for you to speak first. This is the climax of all his fire, all his screams, all his joy. Everything leads here, radical self-responsibility. Not the shallow kind that says, I got this, but the holy, terrifying kind that whispers, if not me, then who? It's the moment when you understand that victimhood, even justified, is a prison. That waiting for closure, for apology, for rescue, is just another way of postponing your becoming. Think of Malcolm X, who went from street hustler to revolutionary. He wasn't groomed for greatness, he chose it. Or Oprah Winfrey, born into abuse, poverty, racism. Yet, instead of waiting for justice, she built a platform and became it. They didn't wait for power, they embodied it. Nietzsche doesn't hand you empowerment like a therapist. He drops it on your shoulders like a crown made of iron, heavy, real, undeniable. What the author really means here is this: stop asking for someone to lift you. You are the one, you are the storm. You are the fire you've been begging to feel. And the longer you deny that, the longer you suffer in the waiting room of your own life. Have you been hoping, quietly, that someone would arrive? That someone would finally see your pain and fix it? Forgive it? Explain it? What if that someone is already here? You. Not the wounded you, not the performing you, but the you that has survived hell and is still breathing. The you that has stared into the abyss and chosen to stay standing. This is not motivation. This is a challenge. To stop being a seeker and start being a source. To stop needing validation and start creating vibration. To stop playing dead and start resurrecting with teeth. Because when you become your own savior, something impossible happens. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Insight 15, the new sun rises. There is a moment, after the chaos, after the collapse, where something stirs. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, it doesn't arrive with lightning or thunder. It's a quiet glow on the horizon, a light that doesn't descend from heaven, but rises from within. Nietzsche called it the dawn, and it's the final stage of his gospel of fire. After God is dead, after meaning disintegrates, After you've burned the old and sculpted the new, there's still one thing left to do. Live, not exist, not perform, not survive, live. That's the sunrise. That's the reward. And it's not given to the obedient. It's earned by the awakened. You feel it in the small moments. When you wake up and choose not to scroll, but to breathe. When you speak truth, not because it's strategic, but because it's yours. When you laugh fully, deeply, even after all the tears. When you forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. It's in those moments that the new sun rises. Real-life proof? Look at anyone who's walked through fire and still found grace. Think of Nelson Mandela walking out of a prison not as a victim, but as a bridge. Or Maya Angelou, rising again and again in poem and power after a childhood that tried to erase her. These aren't saints. They're proof that resurrection isn't a miracle. It's a decision. What the author really means is this. Joy is not a side effect. It's a sign, a signal that you've come full circle, that the void did not devour you, that the abyss gazed back, and you didn't blink. You created, you danced, you forgave. You chose to say yes to life, not because it was perfect, but because it was yours. So ask yourself right now, can you feel it? That new sun, just behind your ribs, that warmth that says, you made it. Not because the pain is gone, but because you're still here. And now, you're not just alive, you're awake. And with that awakening comes a new kind of faith, not in heaven, not in ideology, but in the quiet miracle of becoming. The sun is rising, and this time, you're the one bringing the light. Closing, the clock has no hands, only you. You've just journeyed through fire, through madness, through silence and laughter, ashes and resurrection. Across 15 insights, we've torn down the sky and stared into the abyss, not to drown in despair, but to awaken something ancient inside you. You met the madman with the lantern. You stood still inside the eternal return. You loved your fate, sculpted your soul, laughed at the edge, and finally, watched a new sun rise. Not a metaphorical sun, your sun, lit by your choice to stop surviving and start creating. Nietzsche never offered comfort. He offered challenge. He didn't want followers. He wanted fire starters. People like you who don't just consume meaning, but build it. So here's the final mirror. Will you keep living on autopilot, or will you wake up tomorrow and treat your life like a masterpiece in progress? A dance without choreography? A clock with no hands, but all the power in the world ticking inside you? The gods may be dead, but the creator still lives. It's you. And the clock has no hands, only what you make of its silence. Remember, this isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning. You've been given the tools, you've seen the light, you've felt the fire. Now go create a life worth repeating forever. Because if you can say yes to your existence, exactly as it is for all eternity, then you've understood what Nietzsche was really trying to tell us. You are the meaning you've been searching for. You are the God that came after God. You are the light in the lantern. And the world is waiting